How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," and then didn't? How often do you feel stuck, not because you lack dreams, but because you keep waiting for the perfect moment to begin? The truth is, procrastination isn't about laziness. It's a subtle form of fear. It's a quiet whisper convincing you to stay in your comfort zone, to delay, to overthink, to wait. But what if you could turn this silent enemy into a source of strength? What if you could learn to act regardless of how you feel in the moment? That's what today's journey is all about. If you're tired of starting over, tired of being stuck in your head instead of your life, hit that subscribe button and let's dive into how Stoicism can help you move from procrastination to power.
1. Why we delay. We procrastinate not because we're lazy, but because we fear discomfort. The discomfort of failure, the discomfort of effort, the discomfort of uncertainty. Most people mislabel procrastination as a character flaw, as laziness or lack of ambition, but at its core, it's an emotional defense mechanism. We put things off not because we don't care, but because we care too much. We imagine failing and the shame that might come with it. We anticipate the struggle, the exhaustion, the pressure of trying and not measuring up. That emotional weight creates paralysis, not disinterest. Consider how often we delay simple tasks that aren't difficult, but stir up discomfort. Replying to a tough email, starting a workout, writing the first sentence of a big project. It's not that these things are beyond us, it's that the emotional resistance feels overwhelming. Stoicism doesn't coddle these emotions, but it also doesn't shame them. It sees them clearly and asks us to move anyway. Stoicism teaches us that the obstacle is the way. Delaying action is our attempt to avoid the emotions we associate with that obstacle: fear, doubt, rejection. The Stoic framework invites us to see discomfort not as a barrier, but as a teacher. The things we avoid are often the exact things that shape us. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Avoid pain and stay comfortable." He said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Your fear of failure is not a signal to stop, it's a signal to begin with care. Your hesitation is not weakness, it's an invitation to strengthen your resolve. When we delay action, we create distance between ourselves and our purpose. That delay accumulates, turning into regret. And over time, regret is far more uncomfortable than any task ever was. Facing the obstacle doesn't mean forcing ourselves through pain recklessly. It means showing up with integrity, knowing that growth requires struggle. When you internalize that emotions are not commands but signals, you begin to act despite them. You don't wait until you feel like doing something. You do it because it aligns with your values. Emotions are data, not directives. Fear may whisper that you're not good enough. Doubt may say that you're not ready. But these are not orders. They are weather patterns of the mind, passing and often misleading. Stoicism trains us to observe these inner fluctuations without letting them steer the ship. If you only act when you feel confident or inspired, you'll live a life at the mercy of your moods. But when you root your actions in values, in what you believe matters, you create stability. For a Stoic, action is guided by reason, not mood. You don't go for the run because you feel like it. You go because you value health, discipline, and strength. Over time, this practice builds trust in yourself, the kind of trust that can't be shaken by temporary discomfort. The first step in reclaiming your power is honesty. Acknowledge that you're not waiting for the right time. You're waiting to feel ready, and that moment may never come. This is a hard truth to swallow, but it's the truth that sets you free. We often dress up our avoidance in language that sounds responsible. I just need to plan better. I'm waiting for the right inspiration. I need to be in the right headspace. But more often than not, these are rationalizations masking fear. Being honest doesn't mean criticizing yourself. It means looking reality in the face and naming it. You're not broken because you delay. You're human. But you can choose to stop waiting for confidence and start cultivating courage. Courage doesn't feel like readiness. It feels like stepping forward even while your hands are shaking. That's where real power begins.
2. The myth of perfect timing. There's a dangerous lie we often believe that someday everything will line up perfectly. Our motivation will be high, our schedule will be clear, and inspiration will flow like a river. This belief is seductive. It promises a future version of yourself who is effortlessly productive, wildly focused, and brimming with clarity. We tell ourselves, once things calm down, or when I feel more energized, then we'll begin. But the perfect moment is a mirage. Life is messy. There are always interruptions, competing priorities, unexpected problems. The fantasy of perfect timing lulls us into passivity because it lets us off the hook today. We postpone until tomorrow, and then tomorrow until next week. Eventually, entire years can slip away while we wait for an ideal that doesn't exist. The harsh reality is that perfection isn't coming, but there's liberation in that truth. Once you stop chasing the illusion, you can start where you are. But here's the Stoic truth. Life rarely gives us ideal conditions. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for the weather to be perfect before going outside. You'll stay locked in forever. Epictetus taught that external circumstances are not within our control, but our response to them is. If you wait for the world to cooperate before you act, you surrender your agency. Motivation is fleeting. It's influenced by sleep, mood, the weather, what you ate, what someone said to you that morning. Building your life around motivation is like building a house on sand. Instead, Stoicism encourages us to build on discipline. You act not because the conditions are easy, but because your character demands it. Life throws curveballs, distractions, and emotional storms. The disciplined person doesn't wait for calm skies. They learn to work in the rain. Seneca once said, "While we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away." Every moment you hesitate is a moment you'll never get back. This line is a powerful reminder that time is not a renewable resource. Every day you hesitate is one you don't get to repeat. While you think, analyze, and plan endlessly, the world keeps turning. Opportunities pass, potential fades into memory. The Stoics were deeply aware of mortality, not to create fear, but to create urgency. Memento mori, remember that you will die, is not morbid, it's motivating. It reminds us that each day matters. Don't squander your hours in indecision. Don't defer your growth to a tomorrow that's not guaranteed. Life is too precious to waste on delay. You become powerful, not by waiting for the stars to align, but by learning to act even when they don't, especially when they don't. Strength is not forged in ease, but in adversity. When you act under imperfect conditions, you build resilience. You train yourself to function in chaos, to think under pressure, to move forward through resistance. That's real power, not the kind that needs silence and a perfect routine, but the kind that thrives despite disruption. Every time you show up when it's hard, you fortify your character. You prove to yourself that you don't need everything to go your way in order to do what's right. You become the kind of person who can be trusted with responsibility by others and by yourself.
Number 3, creating momentum. The hardest part of any task is beginning. But once you start, really start, momentum begins to carry you forward.
This is a universal truth across disciplines, whether it's exercise, writing, studying, or building a business. The mental weight of beginning is far heavier than the actual effort required once you're in motion. That's because your mind anticipates every possible pain point all at once. It makes the task feel huge, tangled, even dangerous. But action dispels illusion. The moment you begin, you move from imagination into reality. You realize the work isn't as unbearable as your mind claimed. That first push, sitting down at the desk, lacing your shoes, opening the book, unlocks movement. And with movement comes clarity. You don't need a full plan, you need a first step. Stoicism reminds us that we don't control outcomes, only actions. And every action, no matter how small, chips away at resistance. Results are seductive. We want visible wins, measurable progress, applause. But Stoicism strips away the ego's attachment to results and refocuses us on the only thing we can control: effort. This is not a call to indifference, but to inner freedom. When you base your sense of success on doing your part, showing up fully, acting with integrity, you liberate yourself from the roller coaster of outcomes. And small actions matter. Writing one sentence might not feel like progress, but it builds a habit. Saying no to one distraction strengthens your will. Each moment of effort reduces resistance, like a sculptor slowly chipping away at stone. Don't try to climb the whole mountain in one day. Focus on the next step, the next phone call, the next workout, the next sentence written. Trying to tackle everything at once is a recipe for overwhelm. You look at the mountain and feel defeated before you begin. But every mountain is climbed the same way, one step at a time. Break your task into micro-actions. Choose the next right move, no matter how small. The Stoics called this living according to nature, which includes understanding your limits and respecting the natural pace of progress. There's no honor in burnout. There is honor in deliberate, steady movement. When you shift your focus to the immediate, you bypass the paralysis of overanalysis. You engage directly with the present, which is the only place anything can actually happen. Progress isn't about speed. It's about direction. When you stop thinking and start doing, even imperfectly, you ignite a force stronger than motivation: momentum. Momentum is different from motivation. Motivation is emotional and reactive. Momentum is mechanical and earned. It doesn't matter how fast you move. What matters is that you're moving the right way. Each action, even messy or flawed, keeps your trajectory aligned with your goal. The Stoic doesn't seek perfect motion. They seek consistent alignment. Don't obsess over being fast or flawless. Obsess over being consistent. Over time, momentum becomes self-reinforcing. You start to associate action with reward, even if the reward is just the satisfaction of following through. And that satisfaction builds confidence, not the shallow kind based on hype, but the deep kind built on self-trust.
4. Systems over willpower. Willpower is like a battery, strong in the morning, drained by night. Systems, however, don't run on emotion. They run on structure. Willpower is often celebrated as the key to success, but the truth is, it's unreliable over time. Like any limited resource, it depletes with use. You might wake up full of resolve, but by evening, after dozens of micro-decisions, temptations, and emotional fluctuations, that resolve thins out. This is why we fall into old habits at night, make impulsive decisions, or feel drained from the simplest tasks. Systems, however, aren't subject to emotional exhaustion. They operate independently of mood or motivation. Systems are structured routines built from deliberate design that make desired behaviors automatic. When you automate your good choices, you no longer depend on fluctuating willpower. You simply follow the system. It becomes easier to succeed not because you're more disciplined, but because the path to success has fewer friction points. And the Stoics, who deeply understood the impermanence of emotion, would have likely applauded this truth, that sustainable discipline is built on structure, not on bursts of passion. The Stoics didn't just preach self-control, they practiced it through daily routines. Marcus Aurelius journaled each morning. Epictetus reflected each night. Stoic philosophy isn't abstract theorizing, it's intensely practical. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, didn't rely on willpower to remain grounded amidst chaos. He wrote daily in his journal, reinforcing clarity and virtue before engaging in the affairs of the empire. That wasn't a motivational hack, it was a system. Epictetus, once a slave and later a revered teacher, taught students to examine their conscience every night, reviewing the day's actions with brutal honesty. That nightly practice served as a built-in system for continual moral alignment. These men understood that to shape character, you must embed philosophy into habit. Stoicism is less about grand decisions and more about daily patterns. The system is the scaffolding. Without it, the structure collapses. By designing routines that reinforce values, like morning reflection or evening review, we build a life that bends toward virtue without requiring constant internal battle. If you want to stop procrastinating, design your environment to support action. Set up systems that make the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder. Procrastination is rarely a character flaw. More often, it's a product of poor design. The environments we inhabit, physical, digital, and social, are either aligned with our goals or working against them. When tasks feel overwhelming, distractions are easy, and clarity is lacking, we default to avoidance. But if your workspace is free from distraction, your tasks are broken into small steps, and your tools are at arm's reach, action becomes the path of least resistance. Systems reduce decision fatigue. Want to write daily? Set a time and place. Prep your workspace the night before. Block distractions, and automate your start with a trigger, like making coffee or opening your notebook. That's not laziness, it's design intelligence. Stoicism urges us to live according to nature, and it is our nature to be shaped by cues and context. So, design your surroundings to whisper discipline, not indulgence. That way, you don't need to push yourself uphill every day. The system carries you. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Build wisely. Goals are easy to set and thrilling to imagine, but they offer no guarantee of progress. They are destinations, not directions. What determines whether you reach those destinations isn't ambition, it's execution. And execution is powered by systems. You could want to become a better writer, a fitter person, a more patient parent, but unless you have processes in place that support daily effort, those goals remain dreams. You fall to the level of your systems because systems define what gets repeated. And what gets repeated becomes identity. If your system is disorganized, chaotic, or based on bursts of motivation, your results will mirror that instability. But if your system is stable, clear, and resilient to setbacks, your progress becomes inevitable. The Stoic doesn't merely hope to be better, he designs his life to reflect the principles he admires. He aligns intention with action, vision with structure, and in doing so, he turns fleeting inspiration into lasting transformation.
5. Becoming consistent for life. Consistency isn't about intensity. It's about showing up when no one's watching. It's doing what's right, even when it's boring. We often idolize high performers, the athlete training with visible fire, the entrepreneur grinding through sleepless nights, the artist lost in a frenzy of creation. But what truly separates the exceptional from the ordinary isn't flashes of intensity, it's quiet, unrelenting consistency. Doing the right thing once doesn't build character. Doing it when you don't feel like it, again and again, especially when it's dull or invisible, that's what shapes who you become. Stoicism teaches us not to rely on external validation. The virtue lies in showing up, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the praise. It's about internal accountability, choosing to honor your commitments because they reflect your highest self. Life will test your resolve through repetition. The mundane is the proving ground of mastery. Anyone can sprint once. The Stoic runs the marathon, steadily, silently, with purpose. The Stoic warrior doesn't seek applause, he seeks mastery. He knows that a disciplined life is a free life. The Stoic doesn't perform for the crowd, he performs for his conscience. Applause is fleeting, and public approval is often fickle, but the reward of mastery in thought, action, and character is peace. Discipline might look rigid to others, but to the Stoic, it is liberation. Freedom is not the absence of rules, it's living by principles you've chosen for yourself. When you become consistent in your actions, you're no longer a prisoner to whim or circumstance. You don't wake up wondering who you'll be today. You've decided. And that clarity grants you a level of inner sovereignty no external force can take away. The Stoic warrior walks this path quietly, not for recognition, but for integrity. He does not oscillate with public opinion or chase motivational highs. His aim is not to appear great, but to be good, consistently, steadily, and deeply. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be faithful. To your values, to your schedule, to your future self. Perfection is a trap. It paralyzes action and poisons progress. The Stoic doesn't waste time aiming to be flawless. He aims to be faithful. That means keeping his word, especially to himself. It means honoring his values even when no one is watching. It means respecting his routines, not because they're easy, but because they reflect who he's committed to becoming. Faithfulness isn't glamorous. It doesn't get likes or go viral, but it is the essence of self-trust. When you show up consistently, even in small ways, you build a reservoir of inner strength. Your future self doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to stay on the path. When you fall, get up. When you doubt, keep moving. This kind of consistency, humble, quiet, imperfect, builds resilience. It shapes character more profoundly than any grand gesture. Every day you act despite doubt, you grow stronger. Every day you resist the pull of delay, you reclaim your power.
Doubt is not the enemy, it's the training ground. Each time you move forward despite hesitation, you reinforce your agency. The Stoic doesn't wait to feel certain before he acts. He acts and certainty follows. Procrastination, on the other hand, robs you of momentum and leaves you fragmented. Every time you delay what matters, you send a signal to yourself. This can wait. You can't be trusted. But every time you do the work, even a little, you reverse that message. You say, I'm capable, I'm reliable, and that builds confidence. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet strength that comes from action aligned with intention. Consistency, then, becomes not just a strategy, but a form of self-respect. With each small, repeated act, you reclaim ownership of your life. Not through dramatic change, but through steady return. That's the Stoic way. Not sudden transformation, but unshakable evolution.
You've waited long enough for the perfect time, for the right mood, for clarity, for motivation. But the truth is, power belongs to those who act. Stoicism isn't about cold detachment. It's about courageous engagement. It's about doing what must be done no matter how you feel. You don't need another plan. You need to begin. Today, this hour, this moment. Subscribe if you're ready to build the life you keep postponing. And remember, the way to power is simple. Start now, stay consistent, and never stop moving forward.